Be before the African family, welcome to the African Liberation Media Show. Tonight I'll be your host, Brother Amos, and I'm here with my esteemed elder, Baba Makaru, and two very special guests, the founders of Black Diamond Firearms and Training, Brother Roman and Brother Drake. How you doing tonight?
Good. How you doing,
Great,
brother?
great. Doing well. How y'all doing?
BB48 brothers, welcome to African Liberation Media. Before we get into the meat of the discussion, I'd just like to ask Brother Roman and Brother Drake to tell us about, Black Diamond Firearms and Training. Your website says these are uncertain times. Will you be prepared or not? Says that you're dedicated to training and educating non-traditional consumers in regard to their home and personal safety concerns. So, that tells us, gives us a foundation for your business. But just from a personal perspective, what were the factors that led you to start this business?
Well, we started about almost 7 years ago, and it was this was around the time that Philando Castile was murdered by the police.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that there was a big disconnect between how we learn concealed carry and how other people learn concealed carry, or basically what we need to learn if we're concealing versus other people.
Okay.
And it was maybe a month or so later, my mom had taken the concealed carry class, but she had taken it basically was she and a group of her friends, but she had taken it with some rednecks. So they went to the classroom, then they went out to the woods and shot. And there was my mom and a group of other women. It was never very friendly to us. Now, although the people there were, friendly-ish, they have no idea what our concerns are.
Mm-hmm.
So Drake and I started speaking about it, and we want to make sure that our people especially were well prepared and safe, and well armed mentally as well. And we started looking at how to do it and took the classes and been doing this ever since. So the goal from the very beginning is make sure people get trained and are safe.
Okay, so in the book that you brothers were so kind to give me, Dr. Carol Anderson talks about the July 6, 2016, Philando Castile murder by a police officer. Brother had a concealed carry permit, and he was killed. And just a few days later, just one day after, Alton Sterling was killed in Louisiana. I think it was in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And she talks about how the NRA and none of the other Second Amendment advocates came to the defense of these brothers who were armed. So it would have been in the 2016, 2017 timeframe when you guys decided that, as you say, non-traditional customers needed a place. Correct?
Right. Yeah, we started November 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so tell us what is the fundamental, how does your business operate? Obviously you've been successful. You've been able to stay in business since 2016, coming up on your seventh anniversary. How, what are the meat and the fundamentals of Black Diamond's Firearms and Training?
Most of what we do right now is concealed carry classes. In North Carolina, you have to take an 8-hour safety class in order to conceal carry. If you want to open carry, you're allowed to, but of course, for Black people, that comes with other dangers, walking around in the open, letting everybody know you have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of weeks ago, they made it easier to even obtain firearms. So prior to that, you had to have a purchase permit from the sheriff's department.
Mm-hmm.
It costs $5 plus some fees and things. You give fingerprints, and it should take about 2 weeks. In Charlotte, it was taking a little bit longer. Other counties, it'd be a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
But they did away with that format as of last week. That was Senate Bill 41, saying that in North Carolina, you no longer need a purchase permit. So as it is, and that went into effect the day they announced it. There was no waiting period. As in Florida, where they just signed this constitutional carry, that doesn't go into effect until July.
Right.
The Senate Bill 41 went into effect immediately. So you no longer need purchase permits.
Mm-hmm.
So you just go to an FFL, federal firearms license, and you can purchase the gun.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do a deal with somebody who's not an FFL, you're not required to get any paperwork. So you can still go buy a gun from somebody in the Walmart parking lot or sell them a gun, and it's legal.
And didn't they lower the age to 18? Huh?
I got a follow-up question to what you just said, Roman.
Okay.
How does the tracking on that type of sale happen? Do you still have to register the serial number of the gun over to the person
No.
that you're selling it to?
No.
Okay.
No,
Wow.
not if you have two individuals, just like any Joe in the street that want to sell a gun, they can. Now, it's a good idea to, go to a FFL or some kind of way, create a track record. Like at Black Diamond, we broker sales for that purpose. Because if you sell a gun to somebody, you have no idea who they are, what they have done, and vice versa. They don't know where you're going or what you may do. Then you want to create that paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if something has happened or something does happen, then you can say where that firearm came from. Because other than that, you just out here.
And is there still a requirement for if you order guns online, say from Gun Broker?
Yes.
Do you have to go through an FFL?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
When they removed the permit requirement, didn't they lower the age to 18 for a handgun, or was it already 18? I can't remember. I think it seemed like I remember when one of my children got a gun, they had to be 21.
Well, the way it was prior to that, you could get a purchase permit at 18.
Okay.
But even with that purchase permit at 18, you can't buy a handgun from an FFL. So it's still the same. At 18, you can buy a gun. So an 18-year-old can buy a gun from a family member or a friend, but an 18-year-old cannot buy a handgun from an FFL. So that remains the same.
Okay.
But with this new bill that's proposed, this House Bill 189, they're lowering everything to 18. So at 18, you can purchase a gun and conceal carry that gun.
Okay, and that's primarily what we want to talk about tonight, because with the Florida law, which Ron DeSantis signed, I think 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, which goes into effect in July of 2023, Florida became the 26th state to now have what's called these constitutional carry. Constitutional carry means that you can carry a concealed weapon without a permit. And during the course of our conversation, you all expressed several concerns regarding the possible passage of this law in North Carolina. It passed the House of Representatives in South Carolina in February, and it's in the South Carolina Senate now to be considered the North Carolina law. And I'll just read it. I mean, because the language that these guys produce a lot of times is not even coherent. But it says, a bill to be titled "An Act to Protect a Person's Right to Carry a Concealed Weapon Without a Permit and to Continue Allowing Persons to Acquire Concealed Handgun Permit for the purposes of reciprocity or for any other reason desired, to allow the purchase of a handgun without a pistol purchase permit, and to authorize officials elected in the state to carry a concealed firearm while performing their official duties if the official has a concealed handgun permit." Okay, so by removing the requirement for a permit, even though a person can still get a permit, you expressed, several concerns, one of which was safety. And of course, your business would potentially be directly impacted by the passage of this law. So uh, just go ahead, Roman and Drake, and explain your concerns with this bill, which currently is sitting in the House Judiciary 2 committee. And that committee, I think, has 6 Republicans and 4 Democrats, and I'm not sure what the current status of it is. It passed the first reading, and I don't know what happens, from there. But if it's on a fast track, such as the removal of the gun permit bill, it could be coming up very quickly. So uh, go ahead and tell our audience the concerns you have, with this particular bill in North Carolina.
Well, you're right that last bill, that Senate Bill 41, it did go quickly from introduction to the voting and the veto and overruled the veto. All that only took 60 days. And now there's a bigger majority, as you were telling me, because one of the Democrats is now Republican. So it's 60-40 in the Senate where it goes for the next vote. But the concern is that, and it's there's actually a lot to it, but guns are not really part of our culture anymore. They have been in the past, and we're working to get back to that point, but they're not really part of our culture in a positive way at this point.
When you say our culture,
Black people's culture.
okay.
I mean, we have a long history with firearms, but that has definitely changed since the Great Migration and civil rights. We've gotten away from our self-reliance on firearms. One, from integration, just being around white people, I guess. I'm not sure why that made people feel safer, but as people move from rural areas to the city, in a lot of large cities, you can't have firearms anyway. But because of those factors and just what was done to most of us in the 80s, in that war on drugs, where every night on the news they flash images of Black men with guns doing crime. That's in a lot of our heads also. That changed the paradigm of how we view ourselves with firearms. But I think because of that, we are a lot of times less familiar with firearms, how to use them properly, maybe more timid around them. And I know Drake can attest to it also. We've seen people in the range, when we take them to the range in class, they'll talk one way. And, we'll be in the range.
Freeze up.
The range is the proving ground. So I'll see big grown men there shaking and sweating, and people who talk all kinds of talk in class, and they get real scared when they get at the range.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only with our people. I've not seen, we've had all kinds of people in class. I've only seen that with our people, that we have a certain this fear of guns. So, but I think that having that, once we are allowed to carry without any intervention, you are going to have a lot of people who are carrying unsafely, and they're not going to know how to use those firearms. And that is a recipe for disaster. That's going to be bad for us.
And first, can everybody hear me? Fine.
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
I keep dropping off. And so as I say this, I hope I am not just basically repeating the same thing Rome said, because I had to drop for a second to get back on. But either way, what Rome said as far as that go, but people not fully knowing the laws. We never, like when that other bill passed saying you don't need buying permits, where half of our people going to the gun, coming to buy guns, thinking that they don't need to get a background check at all. We don't go any deeper into what the law actually says, and a lot of times we don't know nothing. It's just whatever said on social media. We just run with it. So exactly what exactly is all of the other aspects to go along with the constitutional carry, you know, we gonna be clueless about it. You know, we gonna be clueless. Like you will see a ramp up of people getting arrested and getting shot if that goes through. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. And one thing that I find interesting is that the constitutional carry bill will pass, but they will not scrap the fact that the concealed carry permit. They're not gonna scrap it. And I find it interesting that, okay, you know, and it's for a few different reasons. I understand that. But for me, the concealed carry permit is a buffer. It is a tool to be used to what's the word I'm looking for, Ron? To de-escalate, you know, and I get pulled over.
It can
I
de-escalate.
always feel like I need to de-escalate the situation, whether it's escalated or not. The fact that they walking up on my car and pull me over is already escalated, and I need to de-escalate.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I use that concealed carry permit to do that. How are you supposed to do that when they walking up to the car, guns already drawn, and not only do they think that you may possibly have a gun, now they think you already thinking you got it hid somewhere.
So just a couple of things. First of all, it says that that you can continue allowing persons to acquire a concealed handgun permit for the purposes of reciprocity. What is reciprocity?
What
It
that
means
means
you
is
could go to us.
go ahead.
Go ahead. It's
So
kind of like,
with
you know, if you look at it in
reciprocity,
terms of a driver's license.
yeah.
And with a driver's license, you can go to other states and drive. So you got a North Carolina driver's license, you get reciprocity in all other states that you can go to those states and they'll respect the fact that you have a driver's license. Where you get that with the concealed carry permit, you got a North Carolina concealed carry permit or whatever state you have it for, you're gonna get reciprocity other states, not all of them, but you'll have some other states that may respect your state's concealed carry permit.
Okay. The other thing is that what you've mentioned here is, give us an example of what are the advantages for a person to come to Black Diamond Firearms and Training to get a concealed carry permit. I mean, now we know the concern is that if you don't have to pay for the permit, we know what's going to happen for the average person. Some people will understand that they don't know anything about a gun and they're going to continue to need it. But based on the way the law is now, you know, what is the advantage? What does a person, other than getting the permit, what does a person get from coming to you for firearms training?
Well, a lot of people that we have in our class, I would say probably 70-80% have not shot a gun more than 2 or 3 times. So we get a whole lot of first-time newbie shooters. So an advantage from coming to us is we are dealing with people as though they are novices, as though they've never touched the gun before, and we're taking them all the way through how to be safe through those first shots, the purpose of the gun, the nomenclature, names of the parts of the gun, and getting them more familiar with them. Our primary goal is to make sure when people leave that they know how to be safe with the gun.
Okay.
But we are taking that time to do it. In other concealed carry classes, we've seen they'll take 8 people, send them out on the lanes, tell them load up their guns, and then they're yelling at them over a bullhorn, telling them to shoot. That's good for somebody who grew up with guns their whole life and they've been shooting their whole life, and all they need is they just hear fire and they're ready to go. But 70-80% of the time, that's not the case in our classes. Actually, that's rarely the case in our classes. So we're getting people as comfortable as we can while we have them for those 8 hours.
Is there room for a continuation of the courses even after, let's say this bill passes and they scrap the requirement for the permit, because the course has that much value, do you think that they would still make it a requirement for people to take a firearms training course before they can purchase a gun, even though they don't have to get a permit per se from the sheriff's department? Could they still be required to take a class, which would probably help resolve a lot of the worries and concerns about what Drake talked about, the potential of people getting locked up or getting killed?
Well, the truth is, the people that make those laws aren't going to put something in place to make people be safe, because we're going to be on the receiving end. We're going to get all the negative backlash from this law. It is going to be positive for the politicians and the people they make it, because for white people, they get their guns easier. And you go back to those roots of the Second Amendment, they wanted all white people who could have guns to have guns.
A requirement in some states.
It was a requirement.
It was a requirement. It was the law.
Yeah, and that was to make sure that we don't get out of control. Yeah. So two things are going to happen. There's going to be more white people with guns who know how to use them. It's probably going to be more black people with guns who don't know how to use the guns and don't know the law in regards to the gun. Yeah, and that's where we get caught up in both of those scenarios, and it only hurts us. So you're asking almost, could something be made to require you to get more training? Absolutely, it could. Will it? No, because it's only detrimental to us. It don't hurt anybody else.
And so let me ask you this: in terms of, I'm just following the language here on your website, educating non-traditional consumers. Given the fact that you brothers are grounded in our culture and in our history, I'm assuming that when you are teaching our people, you are giving them the basics in terms of, let's say you have an interaction, with a police officer. This is these are the procedures that you already need to have firmly implanted in your mind. You need to have gone over these scenarios. This is how I'm going to respond in that particular case. Are those things that you emphasize in your classes?
Absolutely, and you use the right word. We are telling people how to respond instead of telling people to react. The people that come up to the cars, these police, they've been using the same tactics for years. They're not changing up that play. They do the same thing all the time. So we're just advising people of those tactics, making sure that they're being safe. And in the end, we tell everybody, survive the encounter. No matter who the encounter is with, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to walk away from that encounter.
Right.
So yeah, we are very thorough in the messaging class.
Okay. So now the classes are, am I right? Would I be right in describing the classes is like the foundation for your business, your reason for being in business, or is that where you generate your income?
Absolutely, yeah. Income is generated from the conceal carry classes. We do some from selling guns and the classes you can take afterwards, but the bulk of it is from conceal carry.
Mm-hmm. And so the potential passage of this law then will definitely have a negative impact on your business. And I know that's your primary concern, in addition to being concerned about all these people on the streets, about public safety. But that's a major concern. I mean, it has to be, because that's how you earn your livelihood for you and your family, right?
Somewhat, okay. But I will say I'll speak for Drake also. Our primary concern has always been making sure that people are safe.
Okay.
So we would definitely have to change up our model, but a lot of what we've been doing with Black Diamond is not food on the table. It helps, but it's not primary. We both have to do other things.
Right. Okay.
So we've always been doing this out of love.
Yeah. And you've been able to do it since 2016. I mean, that's an accomplishment in and of itself, because we have so many of our businesses that that are short lived, and you've been able to do this. So I mean, obviously, it's successful, even if it's not your primary means of income. It's been successful, and it's provided a tremendous service, to our community.
Yeah, so we will definitely have to switch up that model. We'll have to offer more training, be more available for training, and just change. We'll have to change our approach, how we find people, and it's unfortunate in this business. We always get a spike when something bad happens,
Okay.
And we're just hoping it doesn't take something bad happening for people to say, "Oh, I got this gun. Maybe I should learn how to use it."
Bad happening? You mean like the public lynching of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery?
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And we've had a couple of those things happen right here in Charlotte also.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I noticed that this Constitutional Carry Act passed in a lot of states prior to it recently passing in Florida, and now it's up for it's in the House of North Carolina. I noticed that it passed in a lot of states that had predominantly white populations, because the first time that they attempted to pass this in North Carolina, it was rejected in North and South Carolina and in Georgia, states where a lot of black people reside. So do you think that it was somewhat of a test run on the initial states that passed it to see how it would fare, to gather data in the states that where a lot of white people live?
Yeah, I think so. If you look at a map of concealed carry, it's almost the entire South, except for North and South Carolina and Virginia. And past that, Maryland, D.C., their gun laws are different, but it's almost the whole South. But it is catching on. And you're right. It was 2017. There was another North Carolina House bill. It actually started in Cabarrus County. It was a rep from Cabarrus County. And I believe that it never passed the Senate. So, but now that this thing is catching on, and Florida has just become the 26th state, that's a lot. Most states are constitutional carry right now. North Carolina wanted to do it before, but now with a majority in House and Senate, and they know they can overrule the governor's veto, I don't see why they would stop that momentum that they currently have.
If the other states, because I believe, and I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but the current North Carolina concealed carry permit, doesn't it have reciprocity with at least 36 other states?
It does. So, and that's what Brother McCarew had mentioned. So if you're in North Carolina and you have a concealed carry, then you can go to South Carolina as long as you follow the rules in South Carolina. So for this constitutional carry to happen in North Carolina, if people don't get it here, they won't be able to go to the other states that have reciprocity. They'll be able to go to other constitutional carry states,
Okay,
but not the ones with reciprocity. But
and for the existing permit holders, will that still be in continuance?
Yes. So the language in this new bill, it states that concealed carry will continue to exist, but it's really just for the purposes of reciprocity. So if you live in North Carolina, you don't plan on leaving North Carolina, there's no sense in doing it. And I'm sure once North Carolina gets that constitutional carry, that South Carolina will not be far behind.
Well, they've already, the South Carolina House is already ahead of the North Carolina.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
they passed the bill in February. So their bill has already passed, and it's in the South Carolina Senate. And we know McMaster. there will be no veto from Governor McMaster in South Carolina. And you know what this whole mentality, or I don't know, the political polarization in the country. I think there are a lot of things, just like we were discussing before we came on the air, the conversation between Patrick Henry and James Madison when they were trying to get the U.S. Constitution, the amendments to the U.S. Constitution ratified, which Dr. Anderson points out the Second Amendment, I think, was ratified in either 1791 or 1792. Uh, the driving factor, even as they were waging a war of genocide against indigenous people, the driving factor, as Dr. Anderson points out in the book that you gave me, was fear of rebellion by enslaved Africans.
Mm-hmm.
Because our people were in continuous rebellion from day one, because they had been free. They knew what freedom was, and they were determined to return themselves to their original status or their original condition of free, proud, and productive people. And so Patrick Henry and those, as a matter of fact, I mean, even during the quote unquote war for independence, Georgia and South Carolina said that they wouldn't even fight the British unless the Constitutional Congress guaranteed the continuation of chattel slavery. They said we might well stay under under the British Empire if you all are not going to allow us to do that. So when we look at the current conditions, in this country, and let's there is a lot of turmoil brewing, in this country right now. Race has always been, the primary reason, even though class actually is what is caused, a lot of these white people to be in these conditions that they're in. Like we were saying on the podcast the other week, we didn't create the Rust Belt. We didn't get all these white people hooked on opioids. We're not the reason that that they're having, that they're aborting, all of these white babies, and more white people are dying than are being born currently in the United States. So obviously, and I'd like for both of y'all to just give me your opinion on this. Obviously, they think something is brewing, and they want as many guns in the hands of white people as possible. I mean, that's just a theory on my part. I mean, what do y'all think about it?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and reading that book, the second, she talks about that, and the history of Negro slave revolts. They talk about that a lot in there. Also, that's something that white people from the very beginning have feared. They've feared retribution since they started doing this. That's something that's consistent in their psyche. And they are always waiting for us to turn around and do the same thing to them. But we're not like them. But they keep ramping up this thing that they have to brace for it, and it hasn't happened yet. In these past few hundred years, it has not happened yet. So they're probably good. They're probably good to go. Probably don't need to be worried about it now if they got through all those other years. But they're constantly on watch against it. But having those guns, it makes them feel better.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Like we saw in the documentary we were talking about, Exterminate All the Brutes.
Yeah,
that is part of their culture. They have to have guns. They have to be able to kill from a distance.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think in today's politics, most politicians don't have time to research a lot of issues, or a lot of times they get bills that they really don't even read. But whoever is paying them to change these laws, whoever's lobbying the most to change these laws, is what's allowing it to happen. And I know that the NRA is very big on pushing this constitutional carry act, Now, when you go up the ladder at the NRA, you know, who was the brainchild behind maybe why they believe this should be pushed. I don't know that, but it definitely has a lot to do with, I think, the continued push by the liberal agenda to take away people's guns.
Mm-hmm.
So the more guns they can get in the hands of people makes it even a taller task, harder task to try to take those guns away.
Yeah, I just think that they see in a lot of ways, their world is turning upside down, and almost all of it is a product of things that they have created themselves, right? I mean, they focus their hatred on us rather than on the oligarchs on Wall Street. And so, we become, it's just like, we were having the discussion about these uh, these three black prosecutors who have been put front and center as the people who are trying to bring down Donald Trump, who is the leading symbol of white redemption in the United States. So they keep the focus on us, but yeah, but almost as they were correct. This article says permitless carry or constitutional carry, as proponents refer to it, has been a top priority of pro-gun rights groups, including the National Rifle Association and Gun Owners of America. They argue that the Constitution affords Americans the right to carry a gun in public without a government-issued permit, and that allowing more people to carry concealed weapons serves as a deterrent to crime. Now, that deterrent to crime becomes the code word, but we really know that, I think that it is not that they necessarily feel, because right now, we have nowhere near the consciousness we had when we created, say, organizations like the Black Panther Party. But I think they feel that America in general, that there are things that are happening in America in general that they just see their world being turned upside down, and the one advantage that they've had, from their early encounters with people, outside of Europe, after Europe, recovered from the fall of the Roman Empire, was the gun.
Well, I think it's important that we say, or at least I should say this: there is an orchestration behind what we get out of the media that causes the perception that becomes a reality. What I mean by that is, in various markets across the United States, different demographics of people are shown different things. So, from a white nationalist perspective, you listen to a lot of their programs, they say that all they see is black people committing crimes against white people. If you ask a black person what they're seeing in their part of the country, they're seeing police brutality. So there's this tension that's brewing, and it's ran by these media outlets, and we know who controls them. And also, from a white national perspective, on their end, when they look at TV, they're seeing white women with black men. When we look at TV, we're seeing black women with white men. So there is an orchestration behind it. And then when you put the guns in the hands of the Europeans, as Drake stated, it's going to lead to more black people being killed, because that aggression is focused on black people instead of it being focused on the people who are actually orchestrating the racial tension between black and white people.
Hmm. And then we have an internal problem, which Dr. Amos Wilson defined as the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. And there are a lot of guns, in the black community. Of course, nowhere near as many as, the average white American has. Almost all of these guns that are particularly in the hands of young people who are shooting each other down in the streets are stolen. If you make it easier for more guns to be purchased, in my opinion, you're making it easier for more guns to be stolen. And the result of that is, what we see in our community, far too many young people, young black people, being killed or, committing crimes and being incarcerated because, they have stolen guns. And I know that's somewhat of a separate issue, but in my opinion, it's one of our most critical issues because we're just losing, we're losing far too many. And if people had, as Brother Roman said, if people had the historical knowledge, because one of the things, uh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because in Murder in America by Dr. Roger Lane, a white historian, one thing he pointed out, Roman, was that black people in rural America had more guns per capita than black people in the inner cities. But black people in rural America were not killing each other at the same rate because the guns, it's like I grew up in a family where everybody had a rifle and a shotgun. And they used it primarily, for hunting and also for self-defense if anybody, if anything happened. But I think this is another problem, and it's another reason why our orientation towards guns needs to be changed. We need both the consciousness and we need the training. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and you're right about places that are rural. If you're black in a real rural place, very, very clearly who your enemy is. There's no mistaking it. When we get in situations where we're in cities, we kind of lose sight of it, somewhat lose sight of it, and that's done by design as well. So
One more question
it's
I got.
easier to see if you out somewhere in the sticks in Alabama who the enemy is versus being in Chicago.
Mhm.
Another question I have for you, and I'm not sure what the actual language is around this rule or law, but and you can correct me if I'm saying this wrong. Isn't there a threshold, like say if you purchase over 3 guns in a shortened time span, that a report gets sent to some agency? Uh, is that still going to be in place with the permits being taken away?
Yes, that will still be in place. So the law right now is if you're an FFL and somebody buys more than 2 handguns within a week, you are you have to fill out an additional form, report them to the ATF, and report them to local law enforcement.
Okay.
So the ATF is not changing any of their rules. And
Okay.
in mind, that's only for handguns. You can come in and purchase a dozen ARs. There
Hmm.
are no flags.
It
If
seems
you
like
come in and purchase a handgun on Monday and a handgun on Friday, you get flagged.
wow. I'll tell you a quick story. Uh, I purchased a gun online and I had it shipped to Black Diamond. It was supposed to be shipped to Black Diamond, and the seller uh, shipped it through FedEx. So it came FedEx, and the FedEx driver took it to Bass uh, Pro Sports
Oh wow.
instead of Black Diamond. So I got a call, and it was a guy that said, "Hey, we got a firearm. Uh, looks like it was supposed to go to Black Diamond, but it came through us." And this is after I had purchased. But I mean, I don't want to put all my business out there, but I purchased a few firearms in a short span, right?
Uh-huh.
So I was wondering if that was an honest mistake or if that was them redirecting the package because they wanted me to actually go into a white-owned store.
There's not much I put past these people.
Ashe, ashe. I mean, it behooves us to have that kind of consciousness. It's a fact. We certainly appreciate you and Brother Greek joining us, Brother Roman, and this has been very educational. So, uh, tell us, based on what you know so far. What are you? Well, I guess maybe what would you like to see? I think we already know the answer to that. And what do you expect? I know you can't put a time frame on it, but we do have the example of the previous bill. Just basically, what does the future look like in terms of what you're seeing, not only here but really around the country.
That's a lot. Well, we did see that the previous bill in North Carolina took 60 days. And because there's this wave seems to be sweeping the country, and there is momentum, and it is absolutely 100% backed by the NRA, who's putting money in people's pockets to vote one way or another. That's what lobbies are. They're people who are allowed to bribe other people. Mm-hmm. And they continue to do this. So I'd expect around the same time frame for this House Bill 189 as it was for Senate Bill 41, which was 60 days. I'm really expecting to see this happen sometime this month. What would I like to see? I got to tell you, I'm personally torn on gun control. From knowing the history of guns in this country, knowing what the Second Amendment is about, and knowing that the first gun laws in this country were black codes. The first laws about guns in this country were making sure that Africans and indigenous, and at times even Catholics, didn't have firearms.
Right.
And at that time, I think most of us had, I would like to think that at that, in 17, 1800s, a lot of us had that consciousness of, I'm very clear on who the enemy is. I need the gun to protect myself and fight. But nowadays, after I wish I could say exactly what happened to us. Big factor is probably integration, but that's probably a whole nother topic. But we don't have that consciousness anymore. So having all these guns unleashed is I think is going to be detrimental to us. So I'm torn on that. What I would like to see is for all black people to be trained on firearms that they have and know some history behind the firearms and why they're necessary. That's right. In an ideal world. But I'm expecting to see some changes in the law this month. So we will just have to ramp up what we do on our side in terms of training and support. And we're still going to answer the phone. People call us all the time and just want to know about guns and the process. So yeah, we will continue to do that. We'll always be there for the people who help through that.
Appreciate it very much, brother.
All right. Appreciate you. I appreciate y'all having me.
Oh yeah, we definitely enjoyed your knowledge and wisdom. And brothers and sisters, definitely check out their website, bdfirearms.com. Very good brothers over there at Black Diamond. We appreciate you for listening. Until next time, once again, a BB for Hodier.
BB for Hodier.